that you are here with us in spirit from 109 different companies. Welcome to Paradigm Shift. Thanks, Scott. We have an amazing program planned for you. I have met probably a half a dozen people who I thought for sure had been to Paradigm Shift, and they said, no, this is my first time coming. You are in for the seminar of your life. I don't know what it is with this particular seminar, but it is amazing, and it is the seminar that people always come back and come back and come back because they make such amazing change. So pat yourselves on the back for being here. We've got a great program planned for you tonight. Bob and Sandy are in rare form. Bob is feeling really good. Yeah. Yes, he is in good shape, and so is Sandy. How many of you were streamers at the last event? Let's see. Okay, a good number. How many of you have been to the live program before? Okay, really good number. How many of you, it's your first time at a live Proctor Gallagher event? Welcome. Welcome. You are really going to enjoy it. The energy in this room is going to be like nothing you've experienced. And you are going to meet people here that you will probably be friends with for a very, very long time. I was speaking with Pink Lady Shoes tonight, Rachel. I was speaking with Rachel this afternoon, and she was telling me all of the different things that have happened to her, and just the little synchronicity that has gone on to connect her with people and to meet up with people and to grow friendships. She said it has been like nothing that she's ever experienced. So that is in store for you. We have got an amazing video clip. If you can please play that for us.
My experience has been people attend seminars, especially self-development seminars, to look for the answer. They want to know, what is it out there I can learn so that I can be more successful? That wasn't your motivation?
No, oddly enough. And I think probably you're right. I think that's what most people are looking for. I think they're looking for an answer outside of themselves, and they're never going to find it. But because we lack awareness or understanding of who we are, we're totally locked into a physical world, and we let things outside of us control us.
Paradigms, conditioned way of thinking. It controls almost everything we do. And so unless and until we understand that, we're not going to have a big difference in our life.
Most people tiptoe through life, hoping to make it safely to death.
This is Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich. I've been reading this thing now for 23 years. I'll probably read it for another 23 years.
Joining us now is Bob Proctor, New York Times best-selling author, lecturer, and counselor. He's been described as preaching the gospel of positive thinking and maximizing human potential.
Bob Proctor is one of the greatest teachers and speakers in the field of success and personal development in history.
The #1 prosperity teacher in America. You look at all the lists of great speakers in the world, and Bob's always at the very top.
Bob has appeared as one of the stars in the hit movie The Secret and has helped to bring the tools and tactics of truly living a great life to the masses.
The minute he started talking, it was like someone took my head off, shook it around, and put it back on, and everything I thought was true was just like upside down.
I started to really see a much bigger picture for my life.
Sandy's impacting more lives than she could have ever imagined by following her heart. We have tapped into some of the most magnificent minds that ever walked on this planet. This is not information we originated. This is information that has been researched going back for centuries. It's used by every person that wins. Hardly anybody knows what we've got here.
Please welcome Bob Proctor and Sandy Gallagher.
How's everybody feeling? Good. 58 years. That's a long time. Sandy's been at this for 58 years. You're in pretty good shape.
I'm not 58. Let's be clear.
That's a long time. You know, paradigms are interesting things. As we get into this, I think you're really going to start to understand what a paradigm is and the impact it has on your life. And as you change the paradigm, everything changes. You know, so many people go along and they don't really understand very much, if anything, about the paradigm. They're studying, they'll go to school, they'll go back to school, they get another degree, and yet the results don't really change. And they're really puzzled as to try and figure out why they don't change. When I stumbled on this, and I actually did, I thought I was the only one to know it. I suppose as anybody stumbles on it, that's the way they look at it. But it's so simple, and yet it's so difficult to really change it. Because the paradigms are so deep. They go back for generations, and they're programmed in genetically and then environmentally. We say the paradigm shift is a resourceful environment where people from around the world collaborate, mastermind, and explore opportunities while developing financial independence by establishing multiple sources of income. Financial independence for a lot of people is unattainable. They're just not able to see it happen. They're looking for a raise in pay, or they're looking for a better job. And that is because we've never really been taught how to earn money, and we're forever struggling trying to make ends meet. And it's the paradigm that's really holding us back. We blame it on everything under the sun, and it's the paradigm is the cause of the problem. Now, when you change it, everything happens so fast. My income went from $4,000 a year to $14,500 a month, way back in the early 60s. I had no idea what the hell I was doing. Absolutely none. You don't have to understand how to change it. You can change it. But when that happens, you don't know what you've done, so you can't share it with anybody. And generally, when you see a person make a big change in their life in a short period of time, that's what happened. They've shifted the paradigm, but they don't understand what they've done. That's what happened to me. But I got to a point where I wasn't satisfied. I wanted to know, why did I change so dramatically? And I started to study it. And I've never stopped. So let's look at what it is. It's a mental program that has almost exclusive control over our habitual behavior. And almost all of our behavior is habitual. We wake up in the morning and we move into action. We wake up the next morning and we move into action, and one day is much the same as the next. And a year goes by and we look back and not too much has changed. If you pay very close attention and you're prepared to make some decisions, but you've got to make decisions, then you can change a lot in a relatively short period of time. I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen with large corporations. I've seen it happen with individuals. I've seen it happen with students in school. I've seen it happen with people in prisons. I've seen it happen all over the world. People are essentially the same. It doesn't matter where you come from, where you live, what you've done, we're still being controlled by this little demon in our subjective mind. But we want to know that we can change it, and that's what we're going to talk about for the next couple of days. Go ahead. You're on.
I'm on. You're supposed to flip the slide.
I'm learning.
No, you're learning. How many of you first time at a live event? Will you stand up? Because I didn't get to see that when Gina called out. Oh, look around the room, you guys. Look at this. Wow. Wow. That is so awesome. Now, keep standing if you've streamed in, but this is your first time at a live event. You've done this streaming before, but this is your first time at a live event. Okay, streamers, I want you to see this. These are people that are doing exactly what you're doing, and now they're here. You guys, we have almost 5,000 people streaming in. Look over at that camera and everybody say, hi, streamers. 5,000. And I think we're up to 113 countries. And in this room alone, there are 31 or 32 countries represented. Now, I want you to think about that. Bob talked about this as a resourceful environment where people from around the world, 32 countries right here. And you can collaborate with the people on streaming, too. You guys can start texting or make connection and collaborate all around the world. And like-minded people. Environment is more important than heredity. Bob has said that over and over and over. Who you hang around with is who you are becoming. And to think that you're in a room with like-minded people that want to do what you want to do, that is so awesome. If I could say nothing else, I would say take advantage of that opportunity here this weekend. And, if you want to get change in your life, you've got to do things differently. Creativity is the opposite of routine. So, mix it up. Do things you wouldn't ordinarily do. Wear something you wouldn't ordinarily wear. Do something funky with your hair you wouldn't ordinarily do. Go up and meet someone and talk to them about something you wouldn't ordinarily talk to them about. And really play full out. That's how you're going to get the most out of this. Seriously. And every time we do an event together, I think back to my first Bob Proctor seminar. And that's why I get so excited when I see, 3/4 of the room stand up, that this is your first time. Because I will never forget that experience. August 18, 2006. It'll be 13 years this August. And I didn't even know it was a Bob Proctor event. There's probably some of you in here really don't know what you're getting into. So just hang on, put your seatbelts on and hang on, because I didn't know what I was getting into. A friend had invited me to a management seminar. And I said, sure. I went to those all the time, leadership seminar. I thought, that's great. And I didn't ask any questions. And I showed up in Vancouver, Washington, Friday evening, August 18, 2006. And I come into the room and I sit right about where you guys are. And out on the stage walks Bob Proctor. And he starts talking. And it wasn't but 15 minutes into it that I literally felt like he took my head off and shook it all around and put it back on. And I was like, what's happening? I mean, what I thought was true, I was questioning, it was like everything was just this jumble in my mind. And then, I love that video clip that we saw where Bob said, well, I've been studying this for 23 years, and I think I might study it another 23 years. Well, he's been studying it another 35 years and still going strong. He's going to be 85 in 3 months. No, 2.5 months, 85. Yeah, let's stand up and give him a big hand. I mean, he's back there watching. What an amazing man. What an amazing man. And 85, you never would have guessed it. I mean, if you just met him on the street and you tried to guess how old he was, you'd never guess that. He has so much energy. Even having some back issues this last year, no one could keep up with him. And he's been studying this for 58 years. In October was the start of his 58th year. And all he cares about is you. You'll find, it'll seem at times that we're talking about ourselves and our story. We're not. We're talking about you. This entire weekend is about you. And when I was there in Vancouver in 2006 and he's talking, he's sharing these ideas, I was so fascinated. And as I think back on it, I was so fascinated because he was giving me insight into who I was in a way that I had never, ever been exposed to. And I remember thinking, well, why the heck don't we get this when we pop out of the womb? I mean, how much easier would life be? And Bob, he often says, if I could stick this in a needle and stick it in your ass and give it to you, I would. And I'm like, I would too, you know, if you could just do that. But that's not how it works. The way it works is throughout the weekend, we're going to be giving you all kinds of information. And you're going to be getting some stuff and you're going to go, yeah, I know that. And then you're going to be getting some stuff and you're going, what the heck did they just say? And all you need to know is that it's coming in, if you allow it. If you just say, I'm going to play full out, I'm going to suspend disbelief, I'm going to entertain new ideas, I'm going to raise my awareness, and understand that whenever you're going to listen to what someone's telling you, look at the results they have in their life. Is that something you want? Yes. Yeah. And if it is, yeah, go ahead. And if it is, what do? You listen to them and you do what they say. And I remember when Bob was in that seminar, he's standing up there and he said that this is what he did with Earl Nightingale. He said he decided he was going to do whatever Earl Nightingale told him to do, unless and until he found out that he didn't know what he was talking about or he was lying. And he never found that out. Well, I decided I like Bob Proctor's results. This is fascinating. I can see how this is going to change people's lives. I want to be a part of this. I'm going to do what he says. And part of me is thinking, well, wait a minute here. He's talking about how he got a couple months of high school. Didn't even finish the first year of high school. Didn't go to college. Didn't have any business experience before he started in this. And I'm thinking, well, what did I learn? I learned it's all about the degrees. You know, it's all about the education. It's all about the titles. And, you know, and not all about, but that's where it is, in the intellectual mind. And he's sitting there saying, listen to what I'm saying. Look at my results. Tap into your imagination. And the only prerequisite is, what do you want? What do you want? And I thought it can't possibly be that simple. But I looked at his results and I said, I'm going to do it. And so I think back to that, and I think about the almost 13 years that have lapsed since then, and the changes that have happened. And if I look back and I think, well, what really caused the change? It's tapping in to what's in your heart. Really touching in on what do you want? And getting out of your own way. And understand it doesn't have to be that complicated. When you understand the mind and you hold an image and you impress it on your subconscious mind, the subconscious cannot tell the difference between what's real and imagined. That's a beautiful thing that most people never understand. We use it against ourselves all the time. Oh, I don't know what I'm talking about. Oh, I'm going to bomb. Oh, I'm fat. Oh, I'm this. Oh, I'm that. And it's going right into our subconscious mind. And that's what we are creating. Whereas if we flip it on its head, we say, okay, I really get this. I'm going to do this. And you see yourself. You see yourself. That image is real. You see circumstances that could only happen after this goal of yours is manifested. And not only do you see it, but you feel it. So you're experiencing it through your mind's eye. You're feeling it. And you change the vibration you're in. That's what this is about. And we're going to talk about it a million different ways this weekend. But I want to start with a few things, and I want you to really ask yourself this question. This, of course, is Steve Jobs, and he was a brilliant man. He changed an industry. He made some revolutionary changes in our economy and in our world. And he said, for the past 33 years, I've looked in the mirror every morning and asked myself, if today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I'm about to do? And whenever the answer is no for too many days in a row, just days, too many days in a row, I know something's got to change. So ask yourself, if you look in the mirror and you think about what you were going to do on Monday morning, is that what you want to do if it was the last day of your life? I've asked people that question in seminars, and I've got people who've admitted that for 10 or 15 years, they've been doing what they don't want to do. You know, living their life like it's a rehearsal. But you know, I mean, we only get one time around so far as we know, so let's make it count. And we got to make change if we're not doing what we want to do. Really, really think about that. And sometimes you don't even know that that's really the case. When I was in that seminar, and Bob, he kept saying, what do you want? What do you really, really want? And I remember thinking, well, I like practicing law. I like doing deals. I like working with the directors and the executive officers, and, you know, I like my family and my friends. And he's like, but what do you really want? What do you really want? And he touched something inside. And I opened up the workbook. It was actually a Science of Getting Rich book, the little green book. And I wrote in there, I want to create a program with Bob Proctor to bring into these boardrooms that I've been in. And I want to be in the inner circle of this company. I was so impressed with the company and the team that Bob had surrounding him. And I want to be Bob Proctor's closest advisor. And I don't know where it came from, but immediately I slammed the book shut. And I had written it in teeny tiny print. I wanted to make sure nobody could see it. And I slammed it shut so I was certain nobody could see it. Why didn't I want anyone to see it? Because I was embarrassed. I was like, well, who do you think you are? You're just a lawyer. And then the chitter chatter really started. And it's like, well, what do you know about creating a program in personal and corporate development? And, you know, and then I could hear people like my dad saying, well, Sandra, what about that 401k and profit sharing, you know? And I was an equity partner at a law firm. That's like a tenured professor. They can't kick you out. You get a share of profits, you know, for life. And all these things start popping in. What's popping into your head? What pops into your head when you think about what you really want to do? And understand this, what you really want in your heart, it doesn't have to have any connection to what you're currently doing. Not at all. It doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are, your business experience, education. The only prerequisite is, what do you really want? But unless you make a decision that you're going for it, nothing's going to change. Bob's going to get into that tonight, and it's just a fascinating lesson on how we cannot possibly see the way until we make a committed decision. It's impossible. So most of us are stopped right there because we don't make that decision, because we want to know how. How are we going to do it? We don't have to know how. Just ask yourself, last day of your life, would you want to do what you're about to do? Now, all of us want to grow, right? We want to grow because we're spiritual beings. Spirit is for expansion. Spirit is for fuller expression. We want to do more. We want to be more. We want to have more. I remember in that seminar when Bob said that, I thought, whew, thank God there's nothing wrong with me. Because I forever had people telling me, Sandra, are you never going to be satisfied? Is it never going to be enough? And I'm like, no, it isn't. And Bob's saying that's okay. That's what we want, because we want to grow. But guess what's required if you're going to grow? If you're really going to grow and get different results? You got to change. And we might say intellectually, okay, yeah, I'm willing to change. I'll shake things up a bit. But the paradigm does not like change at all. And the closer you get to making a change that's going to make all the difference, the louder and more forceful the paradigm gets. And it's beating you up, and it's telling you all these reasons you shouldn't do what you want to do. And it's right. The paradigm's right. It's in harmony with what you view as logical. Your paradigm controls your logic. I want you to think about that. As a lawyer, we're taught to be logical. This statement leads to this statement, leads to this statement, leads to the conclusion. It's all very logical. My mantra after the Bob Proctor seminar was, do the illogical. And that was my mantra for years after that first seminar. because the change was so difficult to make in so many areas. That is the power of the paradigm. So we got to be willing to do that. And we really want to understand we can create our own economy. Now, what do we mean by that? How many really believe you can create your own economy? Awesome. This room didn't have many hands up. Really think about it. How can you create your own economy? Do you know that during the Great Depression, there were more millionaires made per capita than at any other time? How can that be? It's during the Depression. Do you know that you can have two people in a household married to each other, and one is in the worst recession of their life, and the other is having the greatest economy of their life? How can that be? It happens all the time. It's about where we're focused. Where are we putting our focus? You can create it. And that's what paradigm shift is all about. Now, I want you to really, really open your minds here. I want you to get out a piece of paper. And as we're talking about goals, I want you to start jotting down things that you really want. Really want. It doesn't matter if you think, there's just no way that can happen for me. I don't know how I could possibly do that. If you really want it, start jotting it down. Now, we talk about the ABCs of goals. You could take some notes too on page 11 of your workbook, where we start talking about this. So the A-type goal, what's an A-type goal? You know how to do it, right? So an A-type goal would be like, you have right now a 4-year-old Mercedes, right, Anders? And your goal is you want to buy a brand new Mercedes, okay? Now you bought this 4-year-old Mercedes new. So that's a what type goal?
Probably an A-type.
A-type goal.
But I just got my Tesla, Sandy.
You got a Tesla? Yes. Way to go. Okay, I'm going to talk to somebody else. Okay, so what's an A-type goal? I want you to think about your goal, okay? And I want you to measure it on the standard. Do you know what your goal is?
Yes.
Yes. Is that a yes?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. What's your name?
Marcelo.
Marcelo? Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Okay, so let's see what kind of a goal it is. A, B, or C. Now, we're only talking about A-type goal. You know how to do it. Okay, so think of your goal. Do you know how to do it? You do know how to do it.
No, I think so.
You think you know how to do it. Yeah. Okay, so an A-type goal, have you done it before? Let me ask you that. You've not done it before.
So then I don't know how to
do you want to share what it is?
Yes.
You don't have to.
Yes.
Okay, what is it?
I want to become an influencer in Mexico for self-development.
Okay, so you want to teach like this?
Yes.
Okay, he wants to be an influencer and teach like this. Yes. Have you taught like this at all?
I used to talk about climate change.
He talked about climate change. Yes. Well, that's similar. So you know how to get in front of a crowd and talk?
Yes, in Spanish.
In Spanish. Okay, and you want to do this in English?
Yes, sure.
Okay, yeah, sure. Okay, so it's probably not an A-type goal because you would know how to do it. So if you wanted to expand your climate control, teaching, then that would be an A-type goal, right? So what's a B-type goal? You think you can do it. Okay? Now you just said, I think I know how, right?
Yes.
Okay. So how inspired are you when you're talking about this goal?
I think I'm really inspired. Yes.
You think you're really inspired? How many of you think he's really inspired when he's talking about this goal?
No.
No. Okay, so now let me tell you why you're not super duper inspired when you're talking about it. Because you think you can do it. Okay. You've got some idea of how to do it. So what does that mean? What does that mean, you guys? Is he settling a little bit? Settling a little bit.
Okay.
There's something bigger for you. Okay? Now look at this screen. See that big space? The A-type goal takes up a little space. The B-type goal takes a little space. And then you've got all that up there. Whatever your heart desires is up here waiting for you. Just name it and claim it. Okay? There's that whole space we don't even entertain. Okay. We don't even, we dismiss it because it's so far beyond where we think we can go or where we've been. We're trying to tie it to where we've been. For the longest time, my goal was related to being a lawyer because that's what I knew. And I would try to stretch it, but I wouldn't get inspired. Now, I want you to really think about this. If you are going for an A-type goal, there's definitely no inspiration because you've done it. And why are we even going for goals? It's to grow, right? To introduce ourselves to a part of ourselves we didn't even know was there. We want to grow. We want to be shocked by what we're capable of, okay? So A-type goal, you've already done it. You're not going to learn much, right? Now, B-type goal, what happens with a B-type goal? You are in a seminar, we're going to get you all jazzed up and inspired, and then you're going to go home, and your paradigm's going to start talking to you. And then all your friends and colleagues, people in your life are going to be in harmony with your paradigm, right? So you've got it coming from inside, and you've got it coming from outside, and it's all of it saying, stay the same, stay the same. Why would you want to change? Oh, don't go out there and make a fool of yourself. I mean, how are you going to do that? Have you ever done that before? Seriously. Marcelo, climate control, personal development, I don't know, right? And your paradigm's in there going, oh God, she's right. She's right. Now, we shouldn't be listening to any of this, but we do. We do. And so what happens, your friends start to leave you because they're like, well, Marcelo's changing. We don't really know this guy anymore. In fact, my family was going to do a family intervention. And I'm totally serious. They're like, what is going on with her? I didn't find this out till years later, but they were planning a family intervention. So this is what happens, and they all start to kind of desert you, and because they don't know what's going on with you, so you don't have the friends and support group you had. Your paradigm's battling you, and you're not really all that inspired by it. So what happens? What do most people do? Quit before they get to the finish line, right? So how long might this go on, this B-type goal? Well, it might go on for a couple months. And then you're just tired of getting badgered. You're like, okay, I'm done with that. And then you come to another seminar. And you're like, oh, I'm going to go for it again. Now really listen to this, Marcel, okay? And you're like, oh, I'm going to go for it again. And you come up with another B-type goal. And you're same old thing. Now you may have raised your awareness a little bit, but you go home, you go to your friends, and the same thing happens. And they're, and it's insidious. You don't even feel or see it happening. And next thing you know, you're just like, oh. And often you just go right back to that A goal, and most people stay there. Here's the part where you could get really angry and upset and frustrated, is that if you leave and you come up with a goal, even a B goal, and then you drop back to the A goal, and you do that a couple times, you're not going to like yourself. You're going to get a taste of that B goal, and then you're going to be like, this is not right. And you're going to be mad at yourself. Think of it as a ladder, a self-esteem ladder. And, it's like when you do what you say you're going to do, you just climb that ladder. Well, when you don't, when you drop that B goal, boom, ladder gets chopped down. Boom, ladder gets chopped down. We don't want to allow that to happen. So what's the trick to making sure that doesn't happen? It's to go into that no man's land, that big space up there, where anything is possible. Look at it again this way. A-type goal, you know how to do it. B-type goal, I think I can, if I move this way and I do this and I move this over here, I think I can do it. No inspiration. So what do we got to do? We got to stretch. We got to go to the C-type goal. What's the C-type goal? C-type, your wants. What kind of wants? Fantasy? Yeah, but what's the most important part about C-type goal? Something never done before. What else? You don't know how. Don't know how. What else? Scares the daylights out of you. What else? Excites you. What else? Terrifies you. What else? These are all right. What's the key, though?
No clue how to get there.
Okay, no clue how to get there. This is all right, but what's the key? What? Desire. You want it so bad. When I was in that seminar and I wrote that down in that book, and I'm like, I started having movies in my mind of going into the boardrooms and executive offices, and I would flash back to where I'm working on a deal. I remember a deal I'm working on. It's called a merger of equals, where two banks of similar size, they merge together and bring the best of both worlds and create a stronger organization. And I was working on this, and it was two of the leading banks in the Northwest. And I could see the boardroom and the discussions going on, and they had all agreed to it, but it came down to signing. And the CEO and owner of one of the banks just could not do it. He's like, I can't give up. I can't give up what I've got. How many times have we done that? I can't give up what I've got. Not understanding we're going to create a bigger pie. Yeah, we're giving up a part of our piece of the pie, but we've got a bigger piece of the pie. He couldn't get it, and he didn't do the deal. And that 100-year-old organization is no longer in existence. The regulator shut him down. And so I'm thinking about that in the seminar, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I couldn't help him then because I didn't understand the human dynamic. I mean, I knew how to merge banks in my sleep. I knew how to tell them about the regulations and the securities laws and all of that. But the human dynamic, what was going on within them underneath, that was stopping them from doing what they wanted to do. And I thought, my gosh, if I could package this information and bring it into these boardrooms, it would be revolutionary with the change. And that's made me fall in love with the idea of creating this program. And this program that I came up with is Thinking into Results. And now we have consultants. I think, I'd have to ask Corey, but I think it's approaching 100 countries where we have consultants, like Kim here, who's one of our very best. And we have consultants all over the world, bringing this program into companies and into families. And I was so in love with this idea, and it was such a stretch for me. It doesn't matter if someone looking outside you says it's not a stretch for you. And there were people that maybe thought it wasn't a stretch, but in my mind, it was a huge stretch. I just thought, and also I'm thinking, well, how could you give up 2 decades of, a very successful law practice? I'd done over $100 billion in deals, and I stopped counting at $100 billion. I remember Bob said, well, how much have you done in deals? And I said, I quit counting at $100 billion. And he said, you mean $100 million, right? I said, no, my first deal was $867 million, And I'm thinking, how could I give that up? Give that up, just like that CEO. How could I give that up? And one day, Bob said to me, what do you mean, give it up? He said, you're not giving up anything. You're just taking what you've experienced and learned and parlaying it into another area, into another industry. And one of my goals was to work with Bob. And I got the opportunity to come in as CEO in 2009, January 2009. And I got to this point 4 months into it, 4.5 months into it. And I was still running my law practice. I was at a large firm, and I was the head of the financial institution corporate finance practice. That's a mouthful. And I was still running that, creating Thinking into Results, and now running Bob's companies. He had 19 companies at the time. And I'm running them, and he came to me one day, and he's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, what do you mean, what am I doing? I'm like, I can do it. I mean, sleep's overrated, haha, and I'm joking, and I'm like, I can do it, I can do both. And he looks at me with steel eyes, and he said, are you in or are you out? And I thought, oh my gosh, it's time. It's time to leave the law practice. And I had already written the letter I was going to send all my clients and colleagues, saying I was leaving and why I was leaving and what career I was going into and why I was so passionate about it. I was so in love with it at that point, and I was stretching big time. But it was scary as can be. And I had so much wrapped into what I was doing as a lawyer. and my identity as a lawyer, and I just couldn't hit send. And I had it all keyed up on the computer after that discussion with Bob, and I'm ready to hit send, and my hands froze, and I picked up the phone and I called Bob, and I said, I got the letter written and I'm ready to do this, but I can't hit send. He goes, hit send! Jump! You'll develop wings along the way. And my finger's right there and I hit it. And it's like, shh. That noise when an email goes out. And I screamed. I think I broke his eardrum. I literally screamed. And I went to the outbox and I'm like, please, 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 Steve, still be in the outbox and I can delete it and this insanity will be over. But no, it was in the sent folder. Yes. It was in the sent folder. And I was just freaking out. 24 hours later, I think it was 892 replies. And all of them were along the lines of, oh my gosh, I'd love to do something like that. I wish I had the courage to do something like that. I wish I had passion about something like that. And there were 3 people that I'll never forget. They were lawyers. They'd been lawyers for 40 plus years. And really neat people, very good at what they did. But they said, I would love to do something like that, but I'm going to sit here at this desk till the day I die. And it made me so sad. So sad. And you want to ask yourself, in some way, are you doing that with your own life? Is there some way you're doing that with your own life? Because nobody's going to make the decision for you. You have to make the decision. You got to hit send. And it is scary. But as I think back on all the blessings in my life, that's one of the greatest blessings ever, that I hit send and bet on myself. Now, A-type goal, B-type goal. Is your goal an A-type goal, a B-type goal, or a C-type goal? If you're just going for a B-type goal, is there any way you're going to hit send? Is there any way you're going to hit? Marcelo, would you hit send for your goal? No.
Oh, well, if it's a B-type.
No. You said no.
Yeah.
So what do you got to do?
I have to stretch.
Stretch.
Yes.
In a really big way. Why do you have to stretch?
Because so then I can feel the passion.
So you really get in touch with what's in your heart. Mm-hmm. What's your heart's desire? What do you really, really want? If there were no restrictions, if you had all the resources that you ever needed to do what you want to do, what would you want? That's what you've got to ask yourself. And as you get ideas on this, don't, monitor your ideas and reject ideas. Write it down. Nobody has to see it. Just write it down. Jot down these ideas. And then as the weekend is going on, piece these little ideas together into the big idea of what you really want for your life. Does that make sense? Yes. Do you understand between the B and the C goal? Oh, yeah. And why it's important to go for the C goal? Yep. You got to ask yourself, give it the hit send test.
All right.
Would you hit send for that?
Oh, yeah. I feel it right now.
You do?
What I really
you
want.
Got your goal?
Yep.
Have you written it down?
I haven't written down. I mentally have it.
Okay, let's take a couple minutes right now. Right now, seriously. And I maybe get a blank sheet of paper. Everybody, get a blank sheet of paper. Streamers, make sure you get a blank sheet of paper. And I want you to take a stab at writing down what your goal is. What do you really want? And put it in present tense. I'm so happy and grateful now that. And whatever it is, and if you've got a whole bunch of things that you want, pick the one that seems like the biggest stretch. Okay? And write that one.
But what if you don't know?
If you don't know, if you have no idea, if you have a blank screen like I did initially in that seminar, just start free writing. Just allow yourself to totally relax and just start free writing some ideas. Don't censor it, just write, okay? And the whole thing you're running through your head is, what do I want? What do I really want? Even imagine yourself, you've just woken up in the morning, the alarm clock didn't go off, you just stretch, and you're like, what am I going to do today? Don't tie it to what you think it has to be. Don't tie it to how much money you think you can make with it. Don't tie it to what someone else would think about it. Don't tie it to whether you think it's, valuable or unvaluable. Just, what do you want? And then you can shape it after that, okay? So just start jotting it down. Make sense? Let's just spend a few minutes here. This is really good, and we're going to come back to this throughout the weekend and keep expanding on this, okay? Maybe we can get a little music going. Okay, everybody have something down? How many feel like they really got the seagull? How'd that feel? What? Scary? Good. That's a good thing. We're going to talk about the terror barrier this weekend. You want to hit the terror barrier. Now, for some of you, you're just writing things down, maybe like a picture of a day in your life, but you haven't really latched on to the actual goal yet, and that's totally fine. But you just want to keep stretching and really understand that you've got a group here in this room that will support what you're doing, and understand that when you can really appreciate how your mind works and how the creative process works, you know that nothing is too far out there. And you also know that most of the people in your life probably are not in harmony with that idea. When I went to that seminar, I had those ideas, and then I went to a family reunion in Lake Curlew, Washington, Northeast Washington. And we have cabins there, and it's on a lake. Fisherman's Cove is what the area is called. on Lake Curlew. And I'm in my cabin and I'm journaling, and I was just getting so pumped because it was like I'm journaling a day in my life. And I flew off to teach a seminar, and then I took the jet to go ride my horses, and then, it was just really an expansive idea of what I wanted. And my farm, and I named the ranch hand, and, I named all the horses I was going to have, and I was doing this seminar in Europe, and blah, 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 and I'm going through this whole thing, and I was so pumped, and I walked out of the cabin, and I can still see the bonfire over here with my family gathered around, and this is my brothers and my sisters and my dad and, aunts and uncles and cousins, and they're all sitting around just chucking and jiving and having a good time. And I walk out and I'm like, guess what I'm gonna do? And I start telling them all this stuff, and I'm naming the ranch hand, my ranch hand Harry, and he's saddled up the horse, and I did a coaching call and went out and for a trail ride, and they're just looking at me like, what were you doing in that cabin? And then my dad, who he's gone now, but I love my dad so much and respect him so much. And I hear this booming voice, Sandra, you don't need all that. And now when someone you love and respect says something like that, it's like, oh, like just a knife to the stomach. And I just sort of drooped my shoulders, and I walked back to the cabin. I was totally deflated. Just one little statement, totally deflated. You got to understand how that works. And your paradigm's like, yeah, he's right. He's always been right your whole life. I mean, how could you think these things? That's what we have to guard against. And so what we have to do is we have to fall in love with the idea. It has to be something in our heart's desire. Then we got to build it and feed it and nurture it and really bring it to life. So it has a life of its own. I love how Napoleon Hill says that in Think and Grow Rich. He said, because it becomes a giant of its own, and then it feeds and nurses and entices you. That's what we want to do with our goal. All right? So we got to stretch. And understand this, it's not about who you are that holds you back. You might want to take a picture of that or write it down. It's not who you are that holds you back. It's who you think you're not. If you want this, if you love this, then you can have it. And you're the perfect person to bring it into physical reality. The fact that you love it proves that. And so we don't want to sit there and think of all the reasons that we can't do it, what we're not. I did that in that seminar, and I did it for quite a while after that seminar. You're just a lawyer, you don't know anything about this industry. And then I started building the idea and falling in love with it. And then I was like, okay, I want to create the most powerful transformational program of its kind in the world. And I started really stretching and expanding. But the paradigm, who do you think you are? But it's not who you are. Really lock that in. That's not holding you back. Who you are is perfect. Your spiritual DNA is perfect. It's who you think you're not. And who you think you're not is the paradigm. You're allowing the paradigm to be in control. Now, I love what Robert Heinlein said. In the absence of clearly defined goals, we become strangely loyal to performing daily trivia until we ultimately become enslaved by it. We have to have clearly defined goals. Or next thing we know, we've just wasted all kinds of time achieving no results. We have to have result-oriented goals. How much time do we waste in email? Get up in the morning, get into your computer, and start going through email. How much of that email really needs your attention? When I first started this and I was listening to Bob, he said something about time. He said you can get a lot done in 90 seconds. I'd never heard anyone say that. And as a lawyer, we use this Carpe Diem software program, and every time you talk to a client, you have to track your time, and it's always a % of an hour. Everything's in an hour block. He's like, you can get a lot done in 90 seconds. Like, wow. And then he said something else really interesting. He said a lot of things get done by neglect. That's a really interesting idea. because I had the paradigm of I've got to get through every single email, I've got to respond within a certain period of time, I have to take every single phone call. How many of us feel that way? But a lot of it doesn't need to be answered. If we neglect it, it'll be taken care of. You're going to know which ones you really need to respond to. So how much time do we waste in email? How much time do we waste texting? How much time do we waste playing little games on our phone? There's some pretty fun games, but you can really just get lost in that. Or how about social media? How much time do you spend on Facebook every day? You know, just seeing what everyone's posting. We've got to have clearly defined goals. So we wake up, we get out of bed, and we've got it written out 6 goal-achieving activities that we're going to do. And we move towards that, because you know what? If we don't do that, if we don't take control of how we're spending our days, then whatever's going on outside of us is taking control. Whoever sent you the email is in charge of your schedule for the day. Whoever comes and said, can I just have 5 minutes of your time? They're in charge of your day. So we have to have clearly defined goals. We don't want to become enslaved by daily trivia. Now, this is so important. Joel Barker, this is a long time ago, I think it was in the early 90s. He said to be able to shape your future, you have to be willing and able to change your paradigm. And he wrote a book called Paradigms, and there's a great DVD on this that is really, really good. So, are you willing and able to change your paradigm? Some people are nodding heads saying yes. But do you really know what a paradigm is? Now, we've given a definition of it, but do you really know what a paradigm is? Okay, come up here and I want you to talk about it for 20 minutes to this group. Come on. Now, Bob has been studying this for 58, he's turning around, she's not talking to me. Bob's been studying this for 58 years, what a paradigm is. How to change it. Willing and able. We can't really say that we're willing or able until we truly understand what a paradigm is. But the thing that really got me was an understanding that there's something outside of me that's controlling me, the paradigm. Now, the paradigm's lodged within you, but you didn't choose it. It was shaped. When you were growing, when you were a youngster and your mind's wide open, all these ideas are just flowing into your mind. And it's shaping who you think you are, and it's shaping what you think is possible for you, and what you believe. And I thought, I don't want someone else deciding what I'm going to make of this life, what I'm going to make of me. And so, yeah, we can say we're willing and able, but we've got to really, tune into our thinking mind and figure out what a paradigm is and how it's impacting the results in our life and why we want to change it. And that's why falling in love with your goal is so important. It gives you the inspiration, it gives you the drive, it gives you the willingness to move through the challenges when you are changing your paradigm. And I could spend all day, Bob could spend forever telling you difficult situations that occurred as we were changing paradigms and growing. You guys have a wonderful business and you're expanding it now, right? Yeah, we'll have to talk about it this weekend, but I am positive that you had tons of stories of things that happened where the average person that didn't have this understanding would totally stop and say, well, I guess the law office wasn't that bad, or, it's like, yeah, well, I remember thinking that lots of times. There's a situation when I was moving down the road of doing this program with Bob. And I was working at it every day, and I had a mentor in the company that was mentoring me. And I was sharing all my ideas. And I thought, this is so fantastic to get this help and sharing all these ideas. Well, quite a ways into it, I see a flyer. Someone sent me a flyer. This individual had taken all the ideas and created a program and had a flyer to go market this program. That was like a punch in the stomach. I literally lost my breath. I just couldn't believe it. I hadn't experienced anything like that before. And it took me like 24 hours, and these ideas came in my head. You know, it really wasn't that bad as a lawyer. I was successful as a lawyer. Why am I working so hard to do something that I've never done before? And, you know, maybe just go let them sell the program and all these ideas. I didn't fully understand how the paradigm had a hold in that moment. And so I could have told you I'm willing and able to change the paradigm, but in that moment I wasn't. In that moment I was going to go back to where I was and let the paradigm win because I didn't understand. So we got to really think about that. And thank God I decided to keep moving forward. And you know what? The beautiful thing is, when you hit a big obstacle like that and you move through it, that's when everything started happening in lightning speed. It had been kind of slow up to then. And then it's just like the floodgates open and things started happening. And here's one of the key things that happened. And you can learn a lot from this. I realized that I had come up with the idea. I had put a lot of money into the company to be able to pursue this idea and create this program. And deep in me, I thought, now they need to take over and do the rest. And I thought this mentor was going to do a lot of the work to get this done. And I thought Bob would do a lot of the work to get this done, and the team. And you know what? No one's going to lead your idea but you. Nobody. Every idea has to have a leader. And I realized I've got to lead this idea. They've got their own ideas they're pursuing. And the minute I did that and I took 100% responsibility, everything started happening. So we've got to really understand our paradigm shapes our future. Right now, your paradigm is shaping your future. And that's why you got to latch onto that goal, you got to give it energy, and you got to push the paradigm out of the way. Don't give it any energy. And then it's going to die for lack of nourishment, and you're giving life to the new goal, which becomes your new paradigm. And that's when things really start to happen. I love this. Buckminster Fuller, he says, never change things by fighting the existing reality. If you want to change something, build a new model that makes the old model obsolete. Really think about that. I memorized this, and I said it to myself all the time. When I came in to run Bob's companies, 19 companies, there were so many things that needed to be changed. And it was so easy to latch onto this problem or that challenge and give that energy. Think of the things in your life that have to change if you're going to achieve this goal that you want to achieve. You could give energy to that, the things that have to change. You could fight the existing reality. Like in a relationship, if you get in an argument, how many times do you sit there just giving energy to the argument, to the disagreement? And you hash it out, and you talk about it, and you talk about it again. You're just creating more of the same. But Buckminster Fuller, he says, don't fight the existing reality. Here's the existing reality. You build this new model, your C goal. This is the life you want to live. We want to tie them together. We think they need to be connected. They don't. Let this existing reality go on as you're creating the new model for you, for your life, for your company. Don't fight the existing reality. When you build that new model, the old model is just going to fall away. And you're living in a new place. Now, to do anything great with your life, you've got to have a fair degree of self-confidence. And so, a lot of times we think, well, I've never done it before, so I'm just not sure if I can really do it. And we start to doubt ourselves. But we have confidence in other things. Like I found myself really doubting myself on my ability to create this program and to get out and teach this, but I loved it so much and I knew what changes it could make, but I just would find myself doubting myself. And then I thought, but wait a minute, I learned how to do bank mergers and acquisitions. I learned how to do IPOs and work with public companies and we all learned how to drive a car. I mean, you can drive a car now. You used to have to pay so much attention, and you're nervous, and you're tense. And now, I remember the times I'd put mascara on in the rear view mirror. Now we're talking on the phone even though we're not supposed to, and do it. And you can do all these different things while you're driving. You have so much confidence. It's so comfortable because you have the experience. And so now you're coming up with the C goal, It's a stretch. You really love it, but you have no idea how you're going to do it. So we've got to develop the self-confidence. How do you develop the self-confidence? Through knowledge and experience. So we gain the knowledge, and then we go out and do it, and through doing it, we get the experience. I learned this lesson big time, because I kept telling Bob, when he brought me on as CEO, I said, okay, but I want to learn everything about the industry. I want to learn how to teach this. I want to go on every speaking engagement you go on. And so I think we traveled 300 days or something crazy the first year I was CEO. And I kept saying, I want to teach this. I want to learn how to teach this. And I would go and I would watch him, and I loved it, and I was fascinated. Well, one time we were in Europe, and he was going to be teaching for 2 days, and there were 7 translation booths in the back. They were translating simultaneously into 7 languages while Bob was teaching. And he was just on fire, and the people loved him. There were at least 1,000 people in the room, and the people just loved him. And he came out, and we're getting ready to go to lunch break. And he says to me, okay, you're going to go on for an hour after lunch. It's time for you to teach. And that's the only notice I got. And then we went to lunch with a big group of people, and the whole time he's telling them what a great lesson I'm going to give them and how great I'm going to teach. And I was getting literally physically sick. Like, oh my God. And so we're behind stage, and I'm getting mic'd up, and I remember Bob's like, are you okay? You know, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do this. And I get out there, and I'm like, okay, I know I can do this. And I had an hour, and I started talking, and I got on a flow, and I was just loving it, and it was so good, and the people were seeming like they were interested. And then I thought, oh my God, this is so good. And I went to look at my clock, because I thought, surely an hour is up. 15 minutes. I had 45 minutes to go. And I turned, and there were people that were sitting all alongside the stage, and Bob was like right in the middle. So I'm like, 15, I've got 40, oh my God. And I turn and I look at him like, can you give me some sign what to do, you know? He turned away. He literally would not look at me. And it felt like an eternity, but it was seconds, and I thought, oh my God. And I just went out in the audience, and I started talking to people. And then the flow came back. Self-confidence is a prerequisite. I didn't have the self-confidence, so I was like freaking out. Once I did that, I'm like, oh, okay, I can do that. You got to be willing to go out there and do that. And there are going to be things you have to do, like the hit send, like the go out on stage before you feel you're ready, you know? Do it with fear. Do it. You got to do it, because how else are you going to get the experience? You got to do that to get the self-confidence. And then you just build it and build it. Don't let the lack of self-confidence stop you from latching on to your idea. Don't even let it factor in. It's so easy to do that. As we go through this weekend, you're going to gain a greater and greater understanding of how the creative process works. And it doesn't have anything to do with your experience, with your education, with anything, your age, your sex, what country you live in. It's a creative process that works for everyone. You got to fall in love with an idea, build that idea, impress it on your subconscious mind, and understand that through that process, you're creating it. Now, Bob, I said, has been at this going on 58 years. 58 years. I've never met a more generous individual with his knowledge, with his resources, with his time, with his heart. He is the real deal, and all he cares about is you and helping you achieve what you want. And, you know, he is known all over the world. He is Tarcher Penguin Random House is our publisher. We've done a number of books with them, and we've got several more we're doing. They call him America's top prosperity teacher. If you look at the list of speakers, great speakers around the world, Bob is always at the top of the list. He is exceptional at what he does. I don't know anyone that understands this to the degree that he does and has the ability to translate it and transfer it to everyone. I've seen him coach. He coached my niece when she was about 8 years old on the difference between responding and reacting. And within 30 minutes of coaching her, I saw her transform. I took her home that night, and her mom called me later and said, "What did you do to Anna?" Because Anna is telling her, "Mom, you want to respond, not react," you know? And she's explaining this. He knows how to explain it to a youngster, and at the same time, a Fortune 50 executive would be riveted by it and understand it. So we've got a real gem with Bob Proctor. And so I want you to just get on your feet. I want you to give him the biggest bunch of love you can, and turn on your thinking cap. Bob Proctor!
You know, in talking about change and thinking about it, Sandy had the quote up there by Buckminster Fuller. And he said, "You don't change things by fighting existing reality." The truth is, that's what almost everyone does. We want to change things, and the most of us are fighting existing reality. I did that for a long, long time. And you know, when Sandy came into our company, she was around for a while, so we got to know what she was like and what she could do. And when I decided I was going to bring her in as a partner into the company, she said that she would come in on one condition. She wanted to be the CEO, and she was going to run it. I never wanted to run a company anyway. I think it's a terrible job. And so anyway, I said, okay. And she said, "You know, when this happens, generally the person that's there leaves." And I said, "Well, I'm not going to leave." Well, she said, "You've got to agree that you'll do what I want done." And I said, "Yeah, I'll agree to that." I really didn't know what I was saying, but I agreed to it. And what Sandy did was build a new model. Yet at first, people didn't like the new model. I didn't even like the new model. But you know something? Things started to change. And very quickly, we were in a better position than I'd ever been in business. She made a bigger change in this company than anything that I've ever come across in over 50 years. She understands money. If you don't understand money, you should get with someone that does. Because it makes a big, big difference. People say, "Well, money's not everything." No, it's not. But there's nothing that will take its place either. It's like oxygen. You need it. And she made a tremendous change. Now, we look at this here, talking about a paradigm shift. We say there's two things that you must know if you want to create wealth. And I think everybody wants to create wealth to some degree because it really controls so many areas of our life. And to say it's not important is absurd. It's very important in the area that it's used. Now, what are the two things that you have to look at? They're pretty simple, really. There's nothing complicated about it. You don't need a master's in business administration to understand this. You have to know where you are, and you have to know where you're going. And then you got to get going. Now, that's so basic and so simple. It's so obvious, you'd say, why are so many people stuck? Well, you'd look at it and you'd say, well, probably the answer is they don't have a goal. There's a lot of people stuck. A lot of people. When I say a lot, I'm talking about the majority of people are stuck. Year after year, they come up with the same results. Yet they're really trying to figure out how in the hell to change it. So it looks like it's the goal. At one time, I might have said that myself. But that's not really the problem. You see, I think everyone has a goal. Now, how they define it may be another thing. They may not be very articulate with it, but I think everybody wants something. Yet, if you want it, you could say that would qualify as a goal. Now, of course, if you have it in writing and you've got it properly written and everything, it's a different deal. But I don't think the goal is the lack of the goal is the problem. I think the problem is right here. It's where we are. Most people do not understand where they are. Now, if you're going to get anywhere, you've got to know where you're starting. If you dropped out of a plane somewhere over North America, you didn't know where, but you parachuted safely to ground. Let's say there's no street signs, there's no street lights, there's no compass, it's overcast. You haven't got any idea where you are, and your objective is to get to Los Angeles. God, you could be in Chicago and start to head towards Boston. If you don't know where you are, it doesn't matter if you know where you're going. You've got to know where you are. You've got to have a starting point. Yet you've got to be honest about it. And most people are not. You see, paradigm is the problem. It is really the problem. There is absolutely no question about it. Now, I have gone into some of the largest companies in the world. We went into the Prudential of America many, many years ago, raised the sales by over $100 million. There was one retired VP said he thought that we raised it over $1 billion. Yet, I didn't know anything about insurance. I remember the first meeting I put on was at the Hillside Holiday Inn in Chicago. We had about 500 agents in the room, and I told them any one of them could go out that year and write $5 million in business. Now, this is way back in the early 70s. Second I said that, I lost the audience. I mean, they stayed in the room, but mentally they were gone. And at the first break, this guy came up to me and he said, "Proctor, have you ever sold insurance?" And I said, "No, I never have." He said, "I didn't think so." And I said, "Why are you saying that?" He said, "You don't know what the hell you're talking about." Well, I said, "Hold on a second. I do know what I'm talking about. I just said I've never sold insurance." He said, "You know, you just said that anyone in that room could go out and write $5 million. I said, "That's right." He said, "You know, no one in the company has ever done that." Well, I said, "Then you could be the first." He said, "You said we could do it this year. It's August. The year's over half gone." I said, "Then it won't take you as long to do it, will it?" And I said, "Listen. Go back into the room and listen carefully to what I'm saying. You already know how to write $5 million. Writing or knowing how to do it, that's not your problem. You know how to do it. Your problem is you're not doing what you know how to do. And that's almost everybody's problem." Now, I said, if you go back in there and listen, you could be the one that does it. His name was Don Slovan. This is written up in a Prue magazine. Second week in December, he had $5,200,000 worth of business on the books, and he closed the year with a little better than $6 million, and there was a bunch of people following him. You see, it isn't that we don't know what to do. Most of us already know how to do a lot better than we're doing. That's not the problem. We're not doing what we know how to do. You see, paradigm is really the problem. Now, this is important that we get this, and we've got to understand this. This is a black and white deal. There's nothing, you won't misunderstand it. It doesn't matter how hard you work. It doesn't matter how many hours you put in. If the paradigm does not change, ultimately, everything's going to remain the same from one year to the next. I think it's important that you really burn that into your mind. It doesn't matter how hard you work. You think, if I just work a little harder. That's not the answer. That's not the answer. The truth is, a lot of people do a whole lot better working less. I think we've got to stop and really get this straight. You've got this book in your bag. I'd like you to take it out. You'll see it. It just says Paradigm Shift. Everybody's got one. I'd like you to take it out. On page 2 is an essay by Portia Nelson. It says, I walk down the street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I fall in. I'm lost. I'm hopeless. It isn't my fault, but it takes me forever to find a way out. Paragraph 2. I walk down the street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I pretend I don't see it. I fall in again. I can't believe I'm in the same place, but it isn't my fault. It still takes me a long time to get out. Paragraph 3. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it there. I still fall in. It's a habit. My eyes are open and I know where I am. It is my fault. I get out immediately. Last paragraph. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I walk around it. Next paragraph. I walk down another street. Now, a paradigm is nothing but a multitude of habits, and a habit is nothing but an idea that's fixed in our subconscious mind. When you place an idea in your subconscious mind through repetition, it'll take root. It becomes fixed. A fixed idea is a habit. A habit is something we automatically do without any conscious thought. You get dressed by habit. When you pull your pants on, what foot do you put in first? How many put their right foot in first? Hold up your hand if you put your right foot in. How many put their left foot in first? I wonder why you do that. Well, when you were a little kid, you didn't know how to put your pants on. Your mother said, or your father said, put your foot in here, your other foot. See, they had the pants prepared as if they were going to put them on. And through repetition, you're doing the same thing as mom or dad or guardian, whoever's getting you dressed. And on it goes. Habits are nothing but ideas that are fixed in your subjective mind. Now, on this next page, on page mark 3, at the top of the page, I want you to take and write your name. Write your name. Sign your signature on the top line. Now, when you did that, you didn't have to think. That's an act that's automatic. Graph-Lannis can take a look at your signature or take a look at your writing, and they can tell you a whole lot about you. Because your personality comes out in your own handwriting. So I want you to write your name on that top line. Now I want you to put the pen in your other hand and go to the next line down and write it again. I want you to be aware of how your body tensed up a little bit. Be aware that it's not just as easy to write your name. Now take and write it again with your other hand, right below where you wrote it. We're on page 3. Now, here's the objective with this little book. Every day, I want you to write with your other hand your name on every line on this page. And I want you to do it every day for 30 days. Now you say, well, that's a stupid exercise. No, this is a very, very brilliant concept. Because what you're going to do, you're going to realize just how difficult it is to do that. And you're going to be saying, what the hell, there's no point in me doing this. I don't need to do this. I know I agreed to it, but I don't need to do it. I mean, it's not going to do me any good. You see? Yet you're going to talk yourself out of it. But if you stay at it, you become just as proficient with one hand as you would with the other. See, what you're going to do is write a new program. Signing your name is part of your paradigm. It's an act that you do automatically without thinking. You just write your name. Now, we have had people that do this, and some of them have been doing it for a couple of years, and they're very proficient now with both hands. They can write just as well with one as they do the other. Why do we have a person do this? To become aware of how difficult it is to change the habit. It's so difficult. See, if we want to change something, you don't necessarily try and stop what you're doing. You attempt to program yourself to do something that's essentially the opposite. You see? That's how paradigms are changed. It's not necessarily an easy thing to do, but everyone can do it. Now, this is the book that I started to read on October the 21st, 1961. I've read it every day since then. Now, I've told that, I've said that in many, many tapes. I was in the Marriott Marquis Hotel in New York just a couple of days ago. And the bell captain that took my bags to the room had been watching videos of mine for a long time. One. And he took me up to the room. It was in the afternoon. Next morning, I had a car picking me up at 6 o'clock in the morning. So about 5:30, I phoned and asked somebody to come pick up my bags, and it was Juan again. I said, what the hell, do you work all around the clock here? He said, I'm doing a double shift. I'm standing in for somebody. So we get down, and he said, you know, I started to read Think and Grow Rich after listening to you. I said, I'm going to show you something, Juan. I opened my bag, and I took it out. I said, there's the one I've been reading. Well, he took it, and he looked at it as if it was something sacred. He was holding on to it and looking at it. Now, this book and this record literally changed my life. You see, I didn't know what I was doing, but I was doing something that would change my paradigm. Yet when I did that, I changed my life. Now, it took me a few years before I understood what I was doing. Sandy Gallagher, I've already mentioned, is a very key part of this company. She is brilliant. She graduated university in banking law, the #1 banking law student in America. That's a bit of an accomplishment, I would say. She had a phenomenal career. Before she joined us. I had 2 months high school. She and I came from opposite sides of the tract. But you know something? We're both equally as important to this company. The idea of where you come from doesn't make a hell of a lot of difference. It's where you're going. Yet what you're doing that makes all the difference. That's been proved time and time again. Now, I was listening to Earl Nightingale on The Strangest Secret record. I never heard anyone talk like he was talking before in my life. Never. I was 26 years old, and I had never heard anybody talk like that. Neighborhood I came from, if there was some talk about a goal, you were talking about hockey or soccer or something. Certainly wasn't a direction you might take your life in. But I was reading this book and listening to this record. And what I started to do was change everything that was going on inside. And what I really did, I learned something about one of the key things in life. You see, I don't think you were looking for something to do when you came here. I think you came here because there's something you want to change in your life. Yet you've either been watching some videos and think, you know, this might help me, or somebody's told you to come because they got a lot out of something that we've done. But I don't think you are looking for something to do. You're probably all pretty busy. Yet, I personally believe that virtually everyone in this room wants something you haven't got. Now, I don't know how serious you are about it, but I think we all do. I think that's inherent within us. We're spiritual beings, and spirit's always for expansion and for expression. It's never for disintegration. There's something in us that wants to express itself in a greater way. That's what causes us to want. When I was a little boy, my grandmother pretty well raised me, and she said, "You should be satisfied with what you've got." Grandma was wrong. You should never be satisfied with what you've got. Dissatisfaction is a creative state. You should be happy with what you've got, but never satisfied. The very core of our being is to stretch, to expand, to go after something. You see, when people retire and they don't do anything else, pretty soon they die because they have no reason to live. When people have a reason to live, they live. And when they don't, they die. It's that simple. Well, I started to learn something about decision. And you see, if you really want to change something, now I don't know what it is, but I think you do want to change something, you're going to have to make some decisions. Now, you're going to gather some real valuable information in here over the next couple of days. No question about it. This stuff is gold. But if you don't make a decision, nothing's going to happen. Nothing. Now, when we go to make decisions, we get stuck because we've never been taught how. Never. Our parents don't even teach us as a rule. They make the decisions for us because they're trying to protect us. They want you to do well, so they're going to make the decisions. Then when you leave home, you're wandering around, what do you think I should do? What do you think I should do? What the hell, the person they're talking to doesn't think. They don't know. We don't ask somebody that's already accomplished something what they think we should do. We ask our brother-in-law, the guy next door, the person we're working with. We go to one of our buddies, what do you think I should do, Harry? Harry says, well, hell, I don't know. Let's have a beer and talk about it. You don't know. You see, it's not an accident that 90-some% of the population are not really making it happen. Yeah, it's not that they can't. We are God's highest form of creation. There is nothing on the planet that will equal us. Do you know, all the other little creatures on the planet are completely at home in their environment. They blend in. They're totally at home in their environment. They blend in. We're the only creature, you and I, we're the only creature on the planet that's totally disoriented in our environment. That's because we have been given the mental faculties to create our own environment. But most people don't know that. They're looking to somebody else to steer the ship for them. Now, let's look at this for a moment. That is one of the biggest things we can learn. I'm going to tell you something. I have never made a decision for my kids. I have never made a decision for them. I'll tell a story. I'll share it with you. Some of you have already heard it. I have two boys. One of them, Raymond, big guy, was in the swim team in school. And he was a good part of the swim team. I went and watched him a few times and talked to the coach, and they liked him. He was tall, strong, you know. Yet, so he was a good part of it. And one day he came in, and you know, you've got kids, some of you, and he was sort of, I always feel like you're circling the field. They're coming in, they're going to land with something on you, you know, you're just not sure what it is. And he finally said, Dad, could I talk to you about something? I said, sure, what do you want to talk about? He said, well, I'm thinking of quitting the swim team. I said, oh, okay. He said, what do you think? And I said, I don't know. I'm not on the swim team. You know? Well, he said, you think it would be okay? And I said, I don't know, Ray. I don't know. Well, what do you mean you don't know? I mean, what do you think? I said, Ray, I don't know. Now, I know what Ray's problem was. I could hear him leaving the house at 5 o'clock in the morning. He didn't like getting up. Everybody else is in bed. He's going to get in a cold pool. You see? And he was having difficulty with this. Well, he said, what do you think? And I said, I don't know. As you talk to the coach, well, no, not yet. I could see he was struggling with this. So he kept fooling around, and I said, I don't know, Ray. I said, I honestly can't help you. It's a decision you're going to have to make. Okay, well, I think I'll leave. I said, okay. So he's leaving the room, and I said, oh, Ray. I said, come here. I said, you're having trouble with this, aren't you? Well, yeah. I said, you know something? Next time you go to quit something, it'll be easier. No, it will. And I said, if you keep working at it, I said, you're going to be a professional quitter. He said, oh, God, and he leaves the house. You know? But that's true. He was quitting for the wrong reason. I don't think there's anything wrong with quitting something if you're quitting for the right reason. He was quitting for the wrong reason. He was having trouble making a decision. Let's think of this for a moment. Hill made it very clear. We have a number of people that are watching on Facebook. We had 90 minutes free seminar for anybody on Facebook. What I want to recommend, if you think this is valuable, sign up for the rest of the seminar. Because we're just getting started. You're going to love this information. Register for it. It's very inexpensive, and I'm going to tell you, it's very beneficial. Now, Hill wrote a whole chapter here on decision. And right at the start of it, it's one of the longest chapters in the book. It's a chapter I would recommend some of you read every day for 30 days, 60 days, something like that. He said, an accurate analysis of over 25,000 men and women who had experienced failure disclosed the fact that lack of decision was near the head of the list of the 30 major causes of failure. Now, down further on the page, he says, analysis of several hundred people who had accumulated fortunes well beyond the $1 million mark, and keep in mind this was written in 1937, disclosed the fact that every one of them had to have